Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, the major motion podcast where we talk about the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online. From the San Francisco Bay Area, I, like Ant-Man, am in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm John Negroni, film editor for InBetweenDrafts.com. And from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which, I don't know, are there any superheroes there? Maybe firemen. They're the real heroes. He's a news and entertainment writer at Collider, not a fireman. It's Will Ashton.
Hey, what up? Long time no talk.
Yeah, we're actually doing this before Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania comes out, which we're going to talk about, because by the time you're listening to this, I will be abroad. I will be over the sea in a faraway land called Japan and Australia. So we're doing this early and then releasing it, and you'll get to listen and do all that fun stuff. But Will, you could just tell the listeners, are you going to miss me?
I'll miss you, yeah, of course.
No, you shouldn't, because I'm going to be messaging you all the time, I did on the Italy trip. Like, I think what was I arguing with you about something for the Trevi Fountain?
Yeah, I would imagine you like in front of these historic grand, Italian monuments, just arguing about Pokemon or some boring shit. And Melissa's just like, yeah, isn't this beautiful? It's like, yeah, it sure is. Like, look at some warped picture of Pikachu or Jigglypuff or something.
Yeah, that's not too far off from truth, honestly. But okay, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We both just watched this. You're a bit more fresh on it. You just saw it earlier today. So have you had time to collect your thoughts on Ant-Man? I say that, and I wrote my review right after I watched the movie. So I was gonna say, I don't think. I mean, if Cinemarink is the type of film where I think you kind of have to sit with it a little bit and think on it. I don't think that's the case for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, you're not watching Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania explained. Sure. I think you got it. This is the 31st Marvel movie. 31st, which first of all, I do think it's kind of fun that it's they have a lot of Baskin Robbins stuff in here because it's Ant-Man. It's been a product placement thing for a while. But yeah, Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors, 31 Marvel movies.
Oh, okay. I didn't even catch it because I don't eat ice cream.
I doubt anybody did. Hey, what are you going to do? I'm certainly we can do a quick temperature check on Marvel Cinematic Universe and how we're feeling about it. I'm tired. The fatigue set in a while ago, like a long time ago for me, even longer for you. But I know for me, I'm just kind of like, they need to switch it up here. They just need to I don't know what they need to do. I have this feeling, and I was talking about this with Melissa after the movie. I just have this feeling that they got to start making fewer movies and maybe start focusing, maybe do some shows and stuff to fill in the gaps and keep it alive. But I just don't think they can keep this up. These movies, I don't it's not working, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Phase 4 should have been the time where they break away a little bit more from the extended universe. They're like, okay, we kind of set our piece with that. We gave it this, climactic moment. And now let's kind of have fun in this world and kind of look at the little nooks and crannies and explore some of the characters. They've been kind of doing that in theory.
They've been doing sort of more standalone stuff. It hasn't been we're leading up to a big Avengers team up. It's really just been they just exist in this universe and we're doing little stories here and there. That's what it's felt like.
Sure. I think Phase 4 should have been my favorite of these. And it easily is my least favorite because I think most, if not all of them, have been bad to disappointments. And I don't say that lightly, considering that, I know a lot of people have strong feelings on some of them, good and bad. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is the one I got the most out of. And it's not to say that it's better or worse than the other. Yeah, it's not to say it's better or worse than the other ones. I just feel like that's the one where it's okay, I'm more happy just because Sam Raimi got to do something for the first time in nearly a decade.
Sure.
And then Shang-Chi, I think, was fine. I thought it was solid for what it is, but definitely not as good.
Really good first half, pretty weak second half. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like this one, I think, like you said, I feel like the fatigue is really kind of setting in for people at this point. I feel like they have stronger reactions to this film because I think it's just weighing on them more. I feel like for me, though, I'm just kind of over it already. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't really have any expectations for this. The only one I'm really looking forward to at this point is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Like, that's the only one I can really muster up that much enthusiasm for at this point.
That's how I felt about Wakanda Forever, which wasn't bad, but it was kind of like, I did have a sort of that's it kind of feeling with that one. I know it's pretty recent, but
I mean, I don't even dislike the Ant-Man movies. I think they're both pretty fun.
I like the Ant-Man movies a lot. I think I'm kind of like a sneaky like hyper fan of them to the point where so when I watched this with Melissa, and Melissa like hadn't seen the movies, and I was kind of telling her, like, catching up a little bit on like what I think of them and like kind of some of the stuff that happened in them, and I was like, I feel like most people like the first one more. But I've had more of an attachment to the second one. I've seen the first one more, but I remember the second one better, which is apparently very unusual. I feel like most people are probably like, really? You remember Ant-Man and the Wasp more? But I really like that movie.
I mean, I was rewatching some of the first one before this one, so it is admittedly fresher on my mind, but I really don't remember the second one all that well. And I wasn't here to review it when you discussed it, but... yeah, I mean, I remember like little bits and pieces of it, but definitely the first one sticks in my mind more. And that's not even to say that, I think the second one is notably weaker than the other one. I think they're both about the same. I just, for whatever reason, just remember that first one more. Maybe because more was at stake. Maybe it was just a little bit fresher.
It was more different at the time. They were definitely doing something a little bit I remember that first Ant movie. It came out in 2015. It was kind of ashamed of itself in sort of a way. It was trying to poke fun at itself before the audience could. It's like, what? I can't be named Ant-Man. Like, it was trying to do that. The marketing was all about that. But I think like where it came through was a lot of it was an Edgar Wright's influence of like imagining the fight scenes and sort of the transitions between the small world and the big world. A lot of that had Wright's fingerprints on it. And Peyton Reed, to his credit, was able to like cohesively form it into an entertaining movie.
Yeah, I mean, it had like that kind of B-movie charm at times, but given a, blockbuster budget. But it also had that kind of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids appeal, where it's just like, these are things in our normal life, but what if they were huge? And it's just like, yeah, I mean, that's fun. That's goofy, silly stuff. Yeah. Fun
climax. And I thought like people didn't like the villain, which I get. And I think that the villain was kind of one note in a way, but I think Corey Stoll kind of did really well at that. Like, I think like with what he was given.
Oh, I thought he kind of ate in that first movie.
Yeah.
Like he's like fun. Like he doesn't get a lot to do as that character, but
he's having a good time with weak material, and you can feel it.
Yeah. And I don't really remember the villain of the second one, so I feel like that maybe says something there. But
it was more like the villain. They try to do something a little bit where it was like, the weak spot of that movie is that like the villain is basically disabled, like with chronic pain, and there's a lot of conversation around like Sophia Boutell's character, like is that kind of a bad sort of like representation, and I thought that was pretty interesting. But like at the same time, I thought it was cool that they sort of avoided having like a very dastardly villain, a sort of like they were having a more sympathetic, like it's not about the villain, it's not really about that, it's more about like they're trying to do something that is really hard to do, and they're trying to science the what out of it. But yeah, I think what I like about the second one is that it is a little bit more comfortable with how bonkers it can be, and it kind of leans a little bit more into the spectacle, leans more into the weird science, and like the ants being such a big thing of it. It's something that does carry over to Quantumania in some small ways, no pun intended. But I like the Ant-Man movies. I think they're cool. I think they're fun.
Real quick, I believe the villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp was played by Hannah John Kamen, not Sophia Boutella.
Not Sophia Boutella? I apologize. I only saw the movie, I think, once or twice. But yeah, so
just taking the opportunity to call you out.
Well, thank you. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I remember who the villain is in this one. Not hard to catch that because it's certainly one of our rising actors right now, Jonathan Majors, who I didn't really make this connection before, but I mean, Majors has starred in 3 movies that have been some of my favorite movies of their respective years. Last Black Man in San Francisco. First time he ever got on my radar was that film. That was my favorite movie of 2019. Da 5 Bloods, a year later, my favorite movie of 2020, the Spike Lee film. And most recently, Magazine Dreams, which premiered at Sundance. And right now, that's my favorite movie of 2023. Probably is going to change. We'll see. But I thought that movie was phenomenal. So Jonathan Majors, also Lovecraft Country. He was also in, he was in Loki, but I mean, that was kind of more of like a not as big of a note thing. And he's going to be in Creed 3.
That's
so
right.
Look at Majors go. He is in the major leagues.
Major league, yeah. Majors league.
Majors league, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were going to say something about Majors?
Oh, no, I just was saying it was a big year for him. It's going to be a big year. And I'm excited to see where he goes. But I will say, and I'm very curious to hear what you think about this, I think he's kind of miscast as Kang.
I'm more split on it. I think you're right. I'm feeling that. I think he was way more entertaining as Kang in Loki, which I know you didn't watch, but he's doing something with the character in that's I thought was more interesting. It was a little bit more unexpected. In this one, he's like, okay, I'm the next Thanos. Get it? Like, you're supposed to be afraid. Like, this guy's tough. Like, this guy's like, okay, he's not a walk in the park. But, you and I have talked at length about this. It kind of speaks more to, I think, one of my main issues with the Marvel stuff lately has been, I don't care about the multiverse thing. I don't like it. I don't like the way that they're using it to tell stories. I think there's a way to use multiverses to tell stories. We saw it with Everything Everywhere all at once. I think the way Marvel's doing it, it just isn't connecting for me. I'm not feeling involved in the stakes of a multiverse epic sci-fi movie the way that I think like I could, and I think like Multiverse of Madness, one of the nice things about that movie is there's not that much multiverse stuff. They only go to a couple places and it's not really about that. And like the good stuff about that movie, in my opinion, has nothing to do. Like the worst things about that movie is like when we had that stuff going on with like John Krasinski and like I did not care. Like they Sam Raimi found a way to make it kind of, body horror-y, which was kind of nice. But for me, going into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I was like, okay, we'll go into the quantum realm. Like, that's the setup of the movie. We're going to have Jonathan Majors kind of doing the Kang thing, which is interesting because he's a multiverse kind of villain. But I was like, hey, maybe this means that there's going to be more to him than multiverse stuff. And, like, I'm not going to give away how that all plays out. You'll have to watch the movie for yourself. But I think that even with the quantum realm stuff, I don't know how you feel about it. And I haven't even said at the movie, it's not that complicated. They go to the quantum realm. Cassie's a little bit older. They get split up, gang. You get it. It's an adventure movie. It's kind of like Disney's Strange World, but it's Ant-Man. I don't care about the quantum realm. I don't think it's very interesting. Like it's just kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, but also it's like a Rick and Morty sort of thing. It looks like Ralph McQuarrie's like paintings. Like it looks like Star Wars, but even more specific. It's not really Star Wars. It's like the concept art for Star Wars that Ralph McQuarrie did in the 70s. That's kind of like what they're doing with like the costumes and sort of the production design, the backgrounds. So then it obviously will have a lot of Flash Gordon to it. And my thing is that like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they have a specific tone to them. Like when you're watching those movies, you're in those movies. This movie, I thought it was like directionless. Like it was just a mess. It was a lot of different stuff just like clashing. And it's like, look how weird. The only time where I was like, I like this. I like the feel of this had to do with ants, which like those are your roots. And I don't know. I don't know what could have. I don't know if that means there should have been more ants. Maybe there should have been, probably. But I didn't really like this movie. I didn't hate it. I liked parts of it. I laughed a few times, but I walked away from it just being like, nah, like this just isn't working.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just sort of fine. I guess I know at this point that it is, if not the lowest rated MCU movie, it's certainly one of the lowest rated. And like I said, I think that just kind of ties into people, I guess maybe they have certain expectations with like phase 5 being a palate cleanser. And they're just like, okay, here's like where stakes are going to be established again and all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, like you said, like I think at this point, this movie just kind of feels like a means to an end. Like it feels like, okay, we need to kind of set up Kang a little bit more. We need to kind of set, the chess pieces at play for what's going to happen in the future Avengers movies. But I just don't really care about that stuff. And so for me, the second half of this was pretty dull. Like I felt it was way too busy. There's just too much going on as far as like setting up stuff later on that I just don't really have any interest in at this point. And also, I just feel like that stuff was getting in the way of what has been appealing about these Ant-Man movies, which is that, you know, like they're kind of going for something deliberately and fittingly smaller scale, and it's a lot goofier and sillier. And, you know, like the stakes aren't always small, but they feel kind of small compared to stuff that's happening elsewhere in the MCU. And this movie just felt like it was so kind of tonally at odds with itself, where it's kind of trying to honor that goofy silliness. And like you said, it has that kind of Rick and Morty spirit because like one of the main writers for Rick and Morty is a screenwriter here, Jeff Loveness. So
that's right.
It has that kind of, you know, budding irreverence throughout. But then you have like Jonathan Majors giving, you know, like what's trying to be a kind of melancholic and soulful performance. But I just don't really feel at this point that Kang has that much going on. Like it just kind of feels like he's a power hungry megalomaniac. And I don't think he has like that pathos or tragedy that we saw in Thanos. And so I just don't really think that performance fits what's going on. It doesn't fit the film, and I don't think it really fits the character. And also, I just feel like, you know, it's not a bad performance in that respect, but it just kind of feels like either you need an actor who is a lot hammier and a lot more goofy with this, if this is the character you're going to present, or you need to kind of develop that character more and make him a lot more kind of fleshed out and have kind of more genuine, you know, pathos going on there. And it just kind of felt like they were stuck somewhere in between. And to me, like I was kind of getting with this movie for the quantum realm stuff. I guess it's where I kind of push back from what you're saying, in that I was kind of enjoying the goofy character designs and like these odd little visual designs. I wasn't a fan of all the green screen.
A few of the characters I liked. You weren't a fan of what? Sorry.
All like the heavy green screen that we have. To me,
yeah,
you already said all the comparisons that you said, but for me, my takeaway is that this feels like what Robert Rodriguez's Forbidden Planet would be, except I feel like that's giving the movie too much credit.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's giving the movie too much credit. But because I feel like those movies have a lot more character, even something like Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just. I felt like I was kind of checking out every time Jonathan Majors was on screen, because it's just like, here's another long monologue about how he was slighted by Michelle Pfeiffer and how he's going to, you know, change time for people, or that he's going to disrespect Scott. And I just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't dislike what Jonathan Majors is doing here, and I actually just kind of feel bad for him, because I feel like he's trying to do something greater with this material. And clearly he's at a place in his career where he wants to excel. But I just feel like he's not really bringing the right energy to this film.
I kind of get what you're saying there. I don't think he's weak in the movie. I think ultimately,
and like, I don't either. I just think it just doesn't fit.
I felt though he had a gravitas. He actually, like, to his credit, he kind of like woke up the film for me. We're kind of opposite, because up until he was showing up, I was like, what are we doing? I really just don't feel like the stakes are there. And he does make the character imposing. He does add something to the character there. It just, for me, it just doesn't go anywhere. I was going to mention that Jeff Loveness is also going to be doing Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. So this isn't the last for that screenwriter. And, you know, I'm a little bit concerned, because my issue with this film mainly is that, like, I just don't think the emotional, like, beats are all that compelling. Like the movie ultimately is like, you know, Scott has been resting on his laurels because he helped save the universe, and he wrote a book, and his daughter Cassie, you know, he's trying to reconnect with her because she, you know, they were separated for 5 years and she thought he was gone forever. And he like watched her age before his eyes, and like he missed like a big chunk of her childhood, and they pay lip service to it. They sort of are like, yeah, this is a thing. There's a clear issue with them. They don't see eye to eye on certain things, and the movie is trying to be about like them finding common ground, her following in his footsteps. But I gotta say, it just wasn't, there wasn't something really compelling about it drawing me in. I don't know if it was Kathryn Newton. I think her performance is fine. I don't know if it's because like her character feels a little bit like watered down compared to like the kid who played her. Like when she's younger, she's a bit weirder. She's a bit more precocious in a way that I thought was like different for a kid in these kinds of movies. And this, she's just kind of like fake rebel teen. Like she's like, when you're like, oh my gosh, Cassie's in jail. Like it's supposed to be some kind of, I don't know. I thought it was kind of silly and not the knowing way that Ant-Man usually is. But it is a lighthearted film. I can't like fault it that much. It's trying to be a little bit more light. It's trying to sort of not be overly serious, which I get.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of wondering about that recasting as well. And I thought maybe it might have been purposeful in the sense of like, this Cassie isn't the girl that he once knew. And that would kind of add to that conflict. Like you said, that rebellious spirit. Maybe that's me giving the film and Marvel too much credit at this point, but
I think they just wanted a bigger name, somebody
possibly,
who can like be part of like Young Avengers, A-Force, whatever they're going to do with her next. Because she's going to be around.
Yeah. I didn't really, I don't know. They didn't really have that chemistry as much, I guess, compared to the previous.
They hugged at one point and I was just like, oh, did they just meet?
I don't know. I mean, I just didn't, I didn't really feel as, that well developed for Cassie in this film. Like I felt like her character was kind of basic, and I feel like the writing in general in this is not especially great. Like there's a couple funny moments.
Some funny really moments, but a lot of the dialogue's kind of clunky. Like there is some like awkward delivery. Like you could feel. I think part of it is because the other movies were shot like in locations. Like they weren't always in a green screen, and so like I don't know. I felt like that lends the characters like it was probably a lot easier to film certain scenes in the other Ant-Man movies or to get the right takes. And this one, I bet that they were way more limited on like how much time they had. And like there were moments where like the characters are kind of standing around each other. Like the staging isn't quite right in certain places. And I think that's kind of the limitation of technology. And like you can feel that I think like Marvel's experiencing this, like visual effects is in high demand right now. And there aren't a lot of visual effects artists. And it's not that Marvel doesn't have the resources. It's that like the world doesn't have like enough people to do this kind of work. And so like these folks are like underpaid. They don't have unions for VFX. And it's just sort of like, it's a wild west in terms of like trying to make this stuff look good. And so I don't, I certainly like feel for the people making this movie because I'm sure they wanted to make the best movie possible, but.
Sure. I mean, in fairness, to the visual artists, I feel like a lot of these companies are kind of put under higher pressure because allegedly Marvel isn't always like clear on what they want, and they'll like kind of change things on a dime and expect these things to be produced very quickly.
That's what happened with Shang-Chi.
Yeah, exactly. And so I mean I think that's also kind of lending to these sort of wonky visual effects. And like you said, they're just producing so much content and that they have, such quick turnarounds at this point that, these visual effect artists aren't given a lot of time to do it. And also Marvel tends to seek out like, well, can we find someone who can do it cheaper and quicker so we can get this ready as soon as possible, which is, not the best way to get the best results. So I don't know. I don't know how much that plays into this. And I mean, I think there is a correlation between, the effects getting worse and worse with the release of these shows, which I've liked a bunch of the shows. I've liked the shows more than the movies in Phase 4. I liked Miss Marvel a lot. I thought Hawkeye was a lot of fun. WandaVision and Loki were knockouts, I think, in terms of like, they're actually doing some interesting stuff. Some of the shows I think have been pretty, but like I think a better track record for the shows. And I know you haven't been watching them, so you can't comment on that. But like those shows have big budgets. Like the visual effects that they have to do for their shows, they're trying to make it match the movies. So like we're talking about like way more hours of content all of a sudden. And like I think we're starting to see it really. That's why I was saying before at the beginning of this that I think that Marvel might have to take a step back pretty soon and be like, we got to make fewer movies, honestly, like some big event movies, and then probably still do shows, but like maybe they're going to be quicker to do like, let's just do another season of Miss Marvel. You can do a lot of it just in New York City. You don't have to like have the cosmos reimagined in order to make that movie, and give people a breather because I think people need it. I had heard Kevin Feige say I think they're going to try to roll back on doing the show. So I think they're trying to focus like on doing more movies over shows at this point, which is interesting. But in any case, and I don't know if that's just because I think people are kind of realizing that the streaming boom is dying and that there's not a lot of, added profits from doing things on streaming as opposed to doing it theatrically.
Well, and also Disney Plus is not growing as fast anymore, and it's it's one of those things where the people who want Disney Plus they have it, and they're not going to be able to charge people that much more for it.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, to your comment, I did watch a little bit of Miss Marvel, or sorry, not Miss Marvel,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. Yes, and the special effects in that did not look very good from what I saw. So. No. I don't.
And it was
think
not even the worst that I think we've seen from the shows, which is saying something. That would belong to Moon Knight, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I always kind of find myself annoyed when like they have these opening Marvel credits now, and I see some of these streaming shows in the bunch. I'm like, get that out of here. That wasn't on the big screen. Why are you putting this in my logo?
Yeah, they showed Miss Marvel. And which I think is great. I think Miss Marvel is really fun.
Oh, was Miss Marvel in there? I just saw Moon Knight, and I was just like, get him out of here.
Yeah. Moon Knight, I was a little bit like, excuse me.
Yeah, what are you doing? Here?
It's funny, right? Like we're the Eternals. I don't think I've seen the Eternals in the anyway.
It's so they've just forgotten all about them.
Yeah, where's Jon Snow?
Yeah, I just want them once to pass that like whatever that huge thing that they froze in the sky in the end of Eternals. That giant, monster man or whatever.
Acknowledge
just
it.
Just once pass it and be like, oh, you just got to go past that thing. And like, they just, don't even pretend that is something that happened anymore.
Yeah. The shows don't address it either. It's pretty ridiculous. But, well, I wanted to say, like, in complimenting what I was saying about Scott and Cassie's characters, where is the Wasp in this movie? Like, Scott, it's one thing that, like, Scott and Hope, like the Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's called Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. They barely have any scenes together. They don't have any arc together. And I guess it's because the movie's like, well, we got enough going on. The only thing that the Wasp really gets to do is like a handful of action scenes and kind of just bickering with Michelle Pfeiffer's character of like, you didn't tell me everything. And it's like, she hasn't been back that long. Relax. I mean, maybe it's been a couple of years. But like, it is a little bit of like a very boring story thread. It's just like she's at odds with her mom because her mom didn't tell her everything that happened in the quantum realm. And just like, okay, nothing really comes of it. It's not that relevant. It's not that important. And it just feels like the movie just does not care about the Wasp at all. And I'm like, well, the Wasp is one of the coolest characters. So like, what are you doing? They give Hank Pym a whole thing with ants and it's cool. It's great. And you're like, well, where's that for the Wasp? I'm upset.
I do actually think that maybe, if I recall correctly, Michelle Pfeiffer and the Wasp, Hope, were not blipped, so they would have had probably 5 years to get reacquainted with each other.
No, they were blipped. They were blipped.
Were they blipped?
Because it's
that's right. Because that's the reason why
he gets trapped.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay, my bad.
Like literally, the Marvel universe is saved by a rat.
Sure. I don't remember Ant-Man and the Wasp.
What Endgame?
Okay, whatever. I don't know, man. It's too much to keep track of at this point.
Yeah. And you're not even watching all of it.
But in any case, I was gonna say, for much I was kind of knocking the writing. There is some stuff in this I think is actually kind of funny. For instance, William Jackson Harper shows up in this movie. I think he actually plays a pretty fun character. There's that block guy.
I was wrong that David Dastmalchian is not in this. I think he is in it. It's just not his character that he usually is. But he voices the slime creature thing.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that before. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think he was a fun addition. Like, I like that stuff. I like all the little.
I was missing Michael Pena. Not having Michael Pena in this. Come on, where is he? He's fun. I missed him.
I don't know. I guess I don't feel strongly about that character.
I know you don't. Your heart is ice. But no, William Jackson Harper was cool in this. I'm kind of surprised that he got this role in the Marvel universe. I would have thought he would have gotten something a little bit meatier, but he has fun. Katie O'Brien, I wasn't as familiar with.
When I saw him, there was a part of me that was just like, okay, I guess he's not going to be in Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Wasn't he kind of tipped to be? Yeah.
He would have been perfect as Mr. Fantastic. Oh,
wasn't he kind of tipped to do that?
I think you're right. Man, what a waste. But hey, look.
See, I Fantastic Four,
other actors have been able to bounce around the Marvel universe. So
that is true. But I was feeling that way about Peyton Reed. Like, I feel like he would be better suited for the Fantastic Four movies than whatever this was. But
I hear you. But I mean, I don't know if they're going to make another Ant-Man movie, to be honest. I think they might be done after this.
I don't know.
But to your credit there, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about Fantastic Four, and it's kind of interesting how the two high-profile actors who have played the Human Torch in a Fantastic Four movie have gone on to play far more memorable MCU characters. So that would be Chris Evans, who played the Human Torch, went on to become like the definitive Captain America, like one of the most iconic, live action superheroes of our time. And then the second Human Torch was Michael B. Jordan. And he went on to be Killmonger, considered by many to be probably the best MCU villain of all time. And so it's kind of, who's the next Torch going to be? And what'll be their, if it's going to be MCU, then it's like, oh man, that's going to be more challenging.
It's a good role. It's good.
Yeah.
Good,
it's like a lot of people have their eyes on it, don't they? They're just like, all right, well, I want a job after this. So
it's a hot role.
Yeah. Jonathan Majors would be like, can I do it? Yeah. So I had a lot of issues with this movie, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm hating on it too. Maybe I'm being too harsh. I give it a 6 out of 10. It's a 6 out of 10 movie. I'm mixed on it, but I thought it was at least kind of entertaining. Like, it's not like I watched the movie and I was just like, this is garbage, rubbish. It's like, I think people who are fans of this stuff, who are fans of Marvel movies, are going to like it fine. But it's certainly a weak step back, I think. It's a weak 6.
I mean, like I said, I don't know. I guess I'm between like a 5 and a 6 if I were to rate it. I thought
about 5. That was pretty close.
I don't dislike it as much as some of the other recent Marvel movies. Like, I think I got more out of this. I had a little bit more fun with it. But I just think it gets kind of bogged down in its self-seriousness after a while. And it goes against the stuff that I find endearing about these Ant-Man movies in comparison to the, other MCU movies of late. And I don't know. I feel like the other ones play to Paul Rudd's strengths. Like, they had him as a screenwriter or credited screenwriter. And I feel like there's probably more improv, maybe a little bit more room for him to kind of play around. And like you said, the green screen environment, maybe as long with the COVID restrictions that could have been in place for this film, didn't allow him to really have that freedom. And so, I think he does, make do with this role as much as he can, but I feel like it doesn't allow him to have those same kind of flighty moments that we get in the other ones.
This is my least favorite, like, Rudd as Ant-Man performances, like, throughout, like, including like Captain America Civil War, Endgame. Like, I think that what he was kind of missing, like, that spark. Like, there's something really cool about how he brings the character. Like, there is a thread that he kind of brings up where he's like, I messed up and then my life happened, and he's just sort of like this guy who's always been living by the seat of his pants, and like wild, unexpected things happen to him, and he's successful because he sort of like fails into things, but he never gives up, and he has this like optimism, and there's a little bit of that in this movie, but it's more spoken to than I think it is like sort of demonstrated. And like, you don't have like an Ant-Man and the Wasp where it's like he's even though he's under house arrest, he's making the best of it with Cassie and like building like a whole tunnel system for her, and then having that awkward exchange with the John Woo character, like the FBI guy, Agent Woo, whatever his name was, and just like, that funny improv thing that they have toward the end. And in the first movie where like he's riffing with like Michael Douglas a lot, and Was that what Randall Park was in before this with the MCU? He was right before this, he was in WandaVision. He was one of the like main side characters in that. And then before that, Ant-Man and the Wasp. In this, and I was like, that seems like a real big waste of Randall Park. Yeah, he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was like he was one of the remember that because I don't remember Ant-Man and the Wasp. You weren't paying attention. I don't remember this movie. I don't know why you think I do. Yeah. I think he was one of the best parts of that movie, honestly. He's very funny. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think that it's kind of strange. Like, we never brought back like the Lawrence Fishburne character. We haven't heard from since Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it's kind of like, well, I don't know. It's like that was my main thing in my review, is like they didn't make I think like an Ant-Man movie. Like, we don't have a lot of the characters that we know already. It's just trying to be like a Marvel trailer of like, hey, the next thing's going to be Kang. Kang. I'm like, okay. But I came for Ant-Man. I came for Quantumania. Where's the mania? Not much of it.
Yeah, it's like Avengers 4.5 in a weird way.
4.25. It's like,
whatever, yeah.
Because like Civil War, yeah, it was like Avengers 2.5 famously. It was like an Avengers movie, but Captain America adjacent. But like, I think that worked because I don't know, it was an important Captain America story. This one, I think any of the Avengers could have been slotted into this. It was like, oh, you couldn't just have Ant-Man. It's like, this could have been Spider-Man. He even gets mistaken for Spider-Man. I was kind of wondering, like, just bring Spider-Man back.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but like, I just feel like, again, this movie goes against the interest of Ant-Man. Like, it's playing against the stuff that we found likable about the character in the first place.
If there was an MCU character that they should have put in this, like Thor and Hulk style, who do you think it should have been?
I mean, Ant-Man makes sense.
No, I'm saying who would be like Ant-Man and who? Like to put somebody in here like with him in the quantum realm instead of
it's like a team up.
Like if they were going to Thor Ragnarok it, you know?
Sure.
Like my first thing is like I want somebody that like I want to see more of certain characters that have potential. But like I don't think Shang-Chi would really fit. But like I don't know. Who would play off of Ant-Man pretty well? Spider-Man? Probably
I
Spider-Man.
guess. I mean, Ant-Man, Spider-Man. Go into the quantum realm, I guess.
They can do the pointing thing.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anyone else that would really fit in here, I guess. So
maybe like maybe like a villain. I do want to bring up a couple things, but they would spoil this movie a bit. Normally we would do the Rotten Tomatoes game first, but we'll talk about Rotten Tomatoes, but we're recording this so early that we don't really have like a very solid score. So we'll still do that later. But I want to kind of get into a couple things that are spoilery that this is your warning. If you haven't watched the movie yet, we're going to give some stuff away that you don't want to hear, I think.
Okay. Because
I wanted to talk about a certain character. And so last warning, stop, go away. Spoilers. Here we go. MODOK.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
So as soon as the Bill Murray character, why was Bill Murray in this? Like what?
That's what's so interesting to me is that like I'm kind of surprised that he's still in the movie for one, given that he's been pretty canceled. Given some stuff that's been going on in his career of late, I was kind of like, okay, maybe he's just like so integral to the film that they couldn't recast him or whatever.
Not even close.
No. I mean, not only could they have recast him, they probably could have taken that scene out of the movie. Yeah. And it wouldn't really have affected the film much.
Yeah, honestly. But so aside from that, he mentions he's like, oh, a mechanism only designed for killing. And I was like, oh, MODOK is in this. I didn't know MODOK was in it. Apparently other people knew that was coming. But I was like, shoot. Does that mean Patton Oswalt is going to be voicing MODOK and they're going to be doing it because he has the Hulu show?
Yes. That got canceled a while back.
Yeah. But, I watched some of it. It was pretty funny. But sure enough, MODOK comes into the movie. And I'm kind of curious what you think of like what they did here. Because I mentioned Corey Stoller earlier. So it turns out that like Yellow Jacket comes back and he's MODOK. He's like big face with and I'm of two minds of this. I'm of two heads. On the one hand, I love it. I thought that it was such a fun. I was like, yeah, cool. Like we're harkening back to the first movie. It's like you're playing to Corey Stoller's strengths of like hamming it up. He's a fun like secondary antagonist. This is a great way to do the MODOK thing in a way that actually like fits because you couldn't really get away with this in a different context for these MCU movies. And I think that it like adds some like immediate like emotional stuff to like, oh, it's the villain, but they can play it as comic relief. On the other hand, they don't do that much with it. Like they do a little bit, but I'm like, it's okay. Like, and I feel like it's one of those things where you really have to nail it to really earn it. But where did you land? Were you a fan?
I like the idea. I didn't like the execution.
That's where I am. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's like they could have done a way better job with it.
I just didn't think the writing for it was very good. Like I'm not against what they're trying to do. I just feel like they didn't like Corey Stoll's trying. Like, I mean, he's, having fun with it. And, similar to the first movie, like, he makes a meal of it when he can. But yeah, I just didn't really find it engaging. And then like they're trying to do some emotional stuff with it. Kind of.
I did get a few laughs of like, and we are in spoilers, but his death scene, I did find that pretty funny. He was like, he's like, I got to be an Avenger. And like, I thought that was fun.
I liked him spitting up I liked him spitting up. I thought that was kind of fun.
That was a very Rick and Morty thing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was the stuff where I'm like, okay, I can see the Jeff Loveness coming in here. Like that scene, like the William Jackson Harper stuff, the 2 times, like I remember, like, oh yeah, a writer for Rick and Morty worked on this film. But yeah, I mean,
speaking of stuff that got canceled, wow. Or people,
what, Rick and Morty,
not Jeff Loveness, but
yeah, Jeff Rowland, Justin Rowland. Yeah. Anyway.
Anywho,
yeah, I don't know. I didn't really pay a lot of mind to it. I just kind of thought it was whatever. Didn't really work for me.
My other more spoilery thing is like, okay, you're setting up that Kang is this big, bad, unstoppable. He gets beaten by Ant-Man. And it's like, I know, like, he doesn't really get, and then the movie has to end with like, oh, okay. But like, it's not just one Kang. I mean, it's like, it's thousands of like these Kangs, and like, what are you gonna do? And but like, they set him up so much where he's just like, I've killed so many Avengers, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. But he lost to Ant-Man, and it's a little. It's just, it was a little bit too much. I think that like. And the movie kind of has it both ways a little bit, because I'm like, oh, they're setting it up so he's going to be trapped in the quantum realm, but just Wasp, and then he's separated from Cassie again. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. Like, that sets something up. Now he just goes back home. And nothing really changes. It's all kind of back to normal. It's kind of like what the Doctor Strange thing was too. I mean, obviously things change a lot for Wanda, but like Stephen Strange is like, he gets the third eye, and then literally right after that, it's like, but that doesn't really matter. It's just like, now he has it fine. He's got it under control. Like, Marvel keeps doing this, and I'm a little bit like, hey, like, stick with your consequences. It's like, ever since they got away with it with an Infinity War and an Endgame, you know, and they've been like, well, it's enough that the consequences are slightly different. But ever since that happened, the whole blip thing has been sort of just that, a blip. Like, it hasn't really added to much. And every time they've tried to explore the implications of it, it's just sort of reversed itself and reset by the end of this sentence. So yeah, my rant is over. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that was part of the reason why I didn't really get super invested in Kang as a character, because I'm just like, okay, they're gonna like defeat him, but only to an extent, and then we're gonna see more of him in the future Avengers movie. I just kept, these movies make it impossible for me to focus on them as they are. You have to think about them 3 or 4 steps later. And I was actually kind of wondering, like, okay, they're showing Michelle Pfeiffer a lot more than we have seen her in the other ones. I was kind of thinking, like, is that how they're going to establish some sense of consequence or stake? Like, are they going to kill off her character? Like, it just seemed like there was a lot with her, and a lot with her and Kang.
Sense.
That was just
I don't think they would have the guts.
Space. Well, that's what I was thinking, where I was just like, okay, are they going to be risky enough to at least do that, to like have some sort of consequence for what's happening here? And then no, they don't do that. So it's just like, okay, so
yeah, everybody's fine. Only Darren's the only one who has any sort of, and also, sorry, the lighthouse guy. That was kind of sad. I liked the lighthouse guy.
Lighthouse guy?
Yeah, the one who shot like beams of light from his face.
Oh.
So yeah, you clearly didn't care. You couldn't care less about lighthouse guy. I don't even know his name, so I can't say much.
Couldn't care less about him.
Yeah, clearly. Wow.
Yeah, I like the flubber guy.
Yeah.
He wanted some holes.
David. Yeah. He got his holes, and he was pretty fun. I know you mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is coming up next. After watching this, I am like officially worried. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. It is James Gunn. You know, he really has a hold on these characters, but I'm just worried that the movie is going to suffer from external like circumstances in ways that a lot of these Marvel movies. Because I mean, look, Ryan Coogler got to make his Black Panther sequel, and that movie was pretty bogged down by a lot of like things that I get the sense that Coogler didn't want to do. And I mean, just look at everything else. I mean, for every like Sam Raimi getting to, drag Stephen Strange to hell, you also get Black Widow and Eternals with Chloe Zhao kind of being held back. I don't know. I don't know if Volume 3 is going to really live up to, those first 2 Guardians movies, because I think those are 2 of my favorites of like all the Marvel movies, period. And so I'm a little bit like, maybe it's a good thing. My expectations are a little bit lower. Maybe that's for the best.
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see in May, but based on the trailer that I saw, earlier today, it looks like, visually, it looks a lot more accomplished in these other ones. Like, it looks like they actually took the time to give these films like decent special effects.
I would say the first two movies have good special effects. I mean,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. But it didn't look like they were cheaping out on the third movie in the way that they've been cheaping out some of these other MCU movies. And I just feel like, I don't know, there is a sense of conclusion that's going to come from that film. Like, it's pretty obvious at this point that James Gunn is moving away from Marvel after that film is done, and
and power to him. I think he can do great stuff with DC.
And I trust him as a screenwriter and as a director that, I think he's not going to, blow it, at least not deliberately. And I just feel like, I think Marvel kind of respects that is one of their sacred cows. And, they're probably going to try to, maybe give that one a little bit more, respect. So I'm a little bit more hopeful on that one. I don't know. Like, again, I was also a little bit more hopeful for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and that one left me underwhelmed. So who knows?
Who knows? But all right, that'll do it then for our Ant-Man and the Wasp conversation. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And again, this is far from going to be like the official thing. There already is a critics' consensus because there are 167 reviews counted, but this floor is going to fluctuate a lot. They always do, but so out of 167 reviews, Will, what would you guess the Rotten Tomato score is? Because I know you had an indication of it already, but it might be different.
Yeah,
it's been changing a lot. So let's see what happens.
I've been spoiled on it. I was told it is 53%.
It's no longer 53%. Yeah, it's changed. It's early. Like, it's this score's going up. It's going down. Who knows? Well, yeah. Where do you think it is now?
56%.
Lower. It's 51%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's definitely like, I don't think I'm alone. I'm kind of looking at some like friends of the show here, and obviously this movie does have its fans. Like, and I've been a little bit baffled by it and heartened. I'm glad people have liked it more than I did, because I have a soft spot for Ant-Man, as people can clearly tell. But I'm seeing some people who are just like, this movie's great, and then I'm just like, I feel bad, because I feel like it's one of those things where people are gonna like give it a pass and sort of be like, oh yeah, it's good, I had fun, it's good, and then they're gonna reflect on it more over time and be like, yeah, it wasn't that good, I kind of got caught up in the moment. Like, that's my guess of what'll happen. I hope it doesn't, but that's my sneaking suspicion.
I don't know. I feel like this is going to get kind of a similar divide as like Thor: Love and Thunder, where I think some people enjoy the time.
I remember people were pretty like low on that movie pretty quick.
I don't know. I mean, people are pretty low on this one pretty quick, I feel.
I guess.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for as much as this has been, at this point considered like the lowest rated or like the weakest reviewed MCU movie, I think it's better than most of Phase 4. Like I said.
Yeah, I would say I liked it better than Love and Thunder overall. But I think like some of the highs in Love and Thunder were higher than this. So that's a tough call, actually, in some respects. But sure, I mean, I would take this over certain movies. A few.
At this point, it's just kind of like, was this movie more or less mediocre than this other mediocre movie?
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing here? It's just, like, let's just leave the frozen yogurt shop we don't like. Like,
right.
Why are we experimenting all these flavors?
Should I eat the banana that's 2 days old, or should I eat the one that's 4 days old?
Yeah, I was about to do a Nathan for You callback, but that's probably a little bit too in the weeds. All right, Letterboxd, obviously that's going to be tough too. So we only have 12,000 watches. It's mostly going to be people who went to advanced screenings and critics, obviously. So it's that's a tough one too, because that can be a weird audience who rates those things. But hey, you can still give it your college try, because we don't have an audience score on Rotten Tomatoes yet. We don't have a cinema score yet. By the time people are listening to this, they can look it up and they can play a little game with your friends and be like, hey, we're going to play the Rotten Tomatoes game because John and Will are busy. But okay, Will, on Letterboxd, out of 5, what do you think the average rating is right now?
I think the average rating, I think it's 3.2.
It is lower. It's 2.9, which is our lowest in a while. I don't remember the last time it was in the 2s. Out of the people I follow, it's 2.8 average.
People just don't give a dang, a hoot, or a heck about this movie.
Yeah, heck holler. I'm seeing some people be kind to it. Matt Donato, 3 stars.
Sure.
Some people are like, a little bit less kind to the movie. I can see right here, but yeah.
I was going to ask you, what was your audience response like? Not that, that weighs into how you feel about the film.
I won't say who it is. I see someone here give it 5 stars. 2 people gave it 5 stars. What, y'all? What? Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Sorry, what was your question?
I was saying, what was your audience response?
It was only critics and guests.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't have a filled screening. I'd say that like I was probably the loudest person laughing. I was letting myself have fun. I was trying. It was pretty muted. I'll say that. It was.
That's what I don't know. I mean, like I said, not to say that my audience is every audience, but I found it pretty telling that, the Marvel movies I've seen, even like in Phase 4 with a crowd, that has like a full audience amped to see the film. They usually are like clapping at the beginning and then clapping even harder at the end, and then like having clap moments in the film.
I haven't been getting those at press screenings, even the ones that are filled.
I got that from Wakanda Forever. I definitely got that during No Way Home.
No Way Home for sure.
I got that
was
in
the last one.
Multiverse of Madness. But like, and I feel like I did in Love and Thunder too, but I don't really remember. Actually, I don't remember that one having that response. But
this one, a little bit.
This one I found telling that, not everyone, but there were certainly like Marvel fans there, because like when the movie is about to start and the Marvel fanfare comes up, they're like clapping. It's like, yeah, movie's about to start, Marvel stuff. And like throughout the film, they're not really laughing. Like the only time I remember them clapping during the film was when Bill Murray showed up. And then like at the end, they didn't clap at all. It was like kind of like eerie almost. Like it just was like no response. And I just found that really fascinating. Like they just, they were all amped up when it started, and then by the end of it, they just nothing. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's going to mirror how people respond to this film. It seems like it is based on the reviews, but yeah, I think the Marvel appreciation is just starting to wane at this point, if it hasn't already.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out. Because we don't know yet what the response is going to be, what the box office is going to be. And it's a long movie. It's a little over 2 hours, 2 hours and 5 minutes, but it's not the longest, in terms like some of these Marvel movies have been like 2.5, 3 hours. So I do think it'll be somewhat benefited by having a more manageable runtime for people, but I don't know. I don't know if this is going to do that well, especially because the reviews haven't been great. Reviews have been pretty mixed, and I think people are going to be a little bit like, oh, do I need to see this? And so I think Kevin Feige and company are probably a little bit nervous right now.
I don't know. I mean, it is interesting to me. I haven't been to the movies a lot of late, but I remember like in the last few months, like every movie I'd go to, I get this Ant-Man the Wasp trailer constantly. And then like the last couple times I've been to the movies, I just see Guardians of the Galaxy trailers, but not Ant-Man. Like it's just kind of. I feel like Marvel
to release.
No, but I feel like that's when they should be like, hey, there's an Ant-Man movie coming up in 2 weeks. But no, I just feel like they're kind of just like, Guardians is coming up. Maybe you should get excited about that one.
I will say I did watch the second trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania for the first time. It's very deceptive. It kind of makes the movie seem like it's going to be something that it absolutely is not, because it kind of makes it look like what happens in the movie is like Scott makes a deal with Kang to like get time back with Cassie, where so basically like he'll be able to like get the time that he lost with her. The trailer cuts it in a way where it feels like he's making a deal with the devil instead of like what it is, which is sort of like he's kind of forced to do this or Cassie dies. It's not. I mean, nothing else going on there. And I thought that was kind of weird. Like it's almost like they knew that it was kind of uninteresting the way that they did do it.
Do you think it's that, or do you think that was maybe like what they originally had and they just sort of changed it?
I could see it, but either way, like I could see them being like, oh, that could be an interesting way to do it, but they probably would have like tried to execute to be like, and in post be like, wow, this makes Scott look really bad. Like it just doesn't quite fit. I could easily see that. I don't know. But it's so late in the process. I feel like by the time they're doing the trailers, it's like, what? No, I don't know. I don't know about that.
I'm just saying that it's not unprecedented for Marvel to change things drastically last minute.
Based on the green screen, I mean, I would expect it. It's like, oh yeah, they changed it like in the last few days. Like, I mean, sure.
I don't know.
Maybe
but I feel like that's more. I don't know. I feel it's more interesting if Scott has to make a choice as opposed to he's forced to do something and then he does, and then Kang doesn't honor that deal, and
because then he does the stuff where he's like, "We had a deal," and it is like really dramatic. For it's like, well, yeah, I guess, and he didn't kill your daughter, so
yeah, I don't know. It just struck me as a bit weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's maybe conspiracy theory territory, but
I wouldn't even say it's that far. I'd say it's like you're reading the material a way that kind of makes sense. But anyway,
yeah,
maybe we'll see you all for the next thing. What's coming up after this? What do we have on the docket? Because I'm not going to be around, so I don't know what you're going to do there. But Cocaine Bear, is that the next big thing?
I believe it's Cocaine Bear.
All right,
because Creed 3 doesn't come out for another couple weeks, right?
Creed 3, yeah, I forget. I think that's March, but I don't remember if it's like the second week of March. Probably, I should know this.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think Cocaine Bear is
because they're doing advanced. Well, they're doing like one night only screenings. I know that for Creed 3. So a lot of people are going to see it like before the official release date. But the official release date actually looks like it'll be March 3rd. So I'm going to miss that. I'm not going to be back by then.
You'll be back to talk about Scream 6, right?
Scream 6? Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten an invite to that screening yet. I don't know if we're doing one. I hope so. I want to screen.
I believe it's March 10th.
Yeah, so I know I won't be seeing Cocaine Bear, at least in theaters. But I hope if you do check, I mean, I assume you're checking it out.
Sure.
I hope that, there's a good conversation around it. I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next one. From the Internet California, I'm John Negroni.
And for the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Washington.
See you next time.